15 short months ago, there was a team of about 300 people gathered in a conference room, anticipating the launch of their new platform. Now, there were maybe 10% of those people that were very excited. They'd been working on this for months, for years. This was the day. There were about 50% that were absolutely terrified. What is this going to mean for me? What is this going to mean for my job? What's the future going to be like after today? And there were probably about another 20 that were just there to have the bagel and enjoy the day and see what happened. None of those people could have predicted the impact of the launch of ChatGPT. That was the team in OpenAI. The product, the tool that was accepted, utilized, integrated into every part of society within a matter of months. Think back, 16 months ago, how many of you talked about AI over the dinner table with your parents or grandparents or children? Very few. But one tool was a true paradigm shift that has accelerated the adoption of technology, the way we look at technology, sometimes the way we look at each other, and the way we look at society. And there are some who view the approach of AI, technology taking over the world, as being scary. Dystopia. We'll never have jobs again. There will never be an opportunity to be with people again. Everything will be technical. That's probably about 10% of society globally. There's another 40, 50% that are saying, yes, technology is here, and it will help us to build a better society. Already, Google is seeing 40% faster diagnostics of cancer in patients when AI is used to look at their diagnosis. 90% of global corporations are embedding AI into corporate core operations and seeing improvements in not just efficiency, but revenue and employee satisfaction, as people are freed to be creative, to work with customers, to ask the questions that come from being freed from mundane duties. The world has changed. And I can recognize a lot of us, including even me from Silicon Valley, have those days where it's just all a bit much, and we just simply want to pull the cover over your head. And I see a few smiles and a few nods. That's okay. That's human. That's natural. And sometimes you can hit that snooze button a couple of times or a couple of extra times. But you can't stay under the cover forever, because the paradigm has shifted, and change is the only constant. Empowered by technology, as well as the needs we have in society, whether it's environment, whether it's geopolitics, we have to take some new approaches. We have to move forward. But we do, each of us, have choice. We can either stay where we are as long as possible, holding on to, it worked in the past, it's been good for 20 years, I'm going to hang on. But ultimately, when everything around us is changing, I fear those that hold on are going to be changed. And none of us like to be changed. Versus being part of the change. What I call leaning in the Silicon Valley yes and mindset. Yes, it worked great for 25 years. We've done the same thing every day in the same way for the last 5 years. It's good. And just think, if we keep that and do a little more over here, and we take what we learned here and apply it here. If I'm really good at these skills and I add something to it, I can be even better. That's moving forward into the world and co-creating the world we live in. Now, we are humans, and not only do we all have those days we want to pull the cover over our heads, but we also have this human brain. And the human brain, around the world, all people, has kind of two sides to it. There's one side of our human brain that may sit in a room like this and hear new ideas, and that side says, yes, wow, this is kind of cool. Maybe I can do something different. Maybe I can meet new people. Maybe I can shift into a different role. That would be kind of cool. But then there's this other side of our human brain that's there to protect us, that argues back, that says, well, you've done the same thing for 20 years. Why do you think you're going to be successful? You'll fail. You're not so good at doing those new things. You're not a technology expert. Stay here where it's comfortable. Hold on as long as possible. Unfortunately for a lot of us, that prefrontal vortex is bigger than the other side. So when you know you need to make a change, you got to have a lot of talking to this side of the brain to say, it's okay. We're not going to jump all into the new job. We're going to try it a little bit. We'll take a course. We'll try for a day doing something different to kind of warm that vortex up so it begins to say, this might be safe. It might be okay to do this. I actually experienced this in a very different setting last week. I was fortunate to be able to lead a retreat for a leadership group in Spain. And because it was Winterferie here in Norway, I didn't have any meetings on Friday, so I thought, well, I'll take an extra day and I'll stay in Spain before I come back to the rain and the cold and the ice and all that good stuff. And I had looked at what's around the area of this resort, and there seemed to be some nice museums and architecture in the city, and had a long list of things I kind of wanted to do. But I got up that Friday morning, and the first thing I did is I went down to the beach and had a lovely walk along the coast. And as I sat down with a cup of tea, I was in my comfort zone. The sun was warm, the waves were lapping, my tea was good. That prefrontal vortex started saying, we're comfortable here. It's been a long week. You don't know exactly how to get on the train and how to buy a ticket to go into the city. You've been to cities before. They're noisy, they're dirty, they're polluted. It may not be safe. Just stay here where it's comfortable. And I really felt like I had this battle going on in my head. But I love history. I love seeing new things. I love wandering around cities, even if they are sometimes unsafe, even if they are crowded. And so I fought back. And boy, was I glad I did. Malaga, for those that have never been to Malaga, Spain, is a beautiful city. Lots of architecture, lots of castles, lots of history, beautiful environment. I hiked up to the top castle and had a lovely day. And as I was hiking back down from the castle, happened to run into a colleague I hadn't seen for 5 years. He's now leader in Software One. We talked, said, hey, you do leadership retreats. We're having one in Munich in 2 months. We'll invite you to come and facilitate it for us. I had no idea of that when I set out from the beach where I was quite comfortable. But at the end of the day, 8 hours later, I had lots of new perspectives, new client, new ways of doing things. So breaking out of the comfort zone can lead to unplanned, unpredicted benefits and positives for yourself, but also for the company. A number of years ago, I was engaged by Adobe. At that time, they were known as the darling of Silicon Valley on Wall Street because they had very predictable results. Every 12 to 18 months, they would release new software. Revenue would go up, stock would go up. It would kind of tail down. They'd release new software. Absolutely simple, repeatable, wash and repeat for 20 years. But at that time, the markets were in turmoil. Interest rates were high coming out of the recession. Budgets were cut. Companies were not willing to spend money for new software. Shantanu Narayan had just been promoted after 15 years in the company. He'd been promoted to CEO and was chartered with keeping this perfect track record, do the same thing. But he recognized the market is changing. The iPhone is what everybody is interested in. Creatives, marketing departments, they don't want to buy software on a desktop anymore. They want to do something different. But Wall Street, they were a public company. The board and Wall Street were pushing on him, do more. Hang on, it's worked for 20 years. Discount, coerce them to buy, bribe them to buy, do something. Keep doing things the same way. But he recognized that's not going to work. The paradigm has changed. If we are going to survive, we have to think differently. So we took a step back and we said, let's think out of the box. Why do we have to sell software in a box? Because if we look at the vision, what the founders really wanted was to create an opportunity and deliver on it for people anywhere in the world to access tools to be creative. That doesn't say sell software in a box for $3,000 per box. And so Shantanu went out for a long walk and a long think to ask the question, what can we do now in the world in which we're living now, not the one we were in 2 years ago, but now, what can we do to deliver on the vision? And he had the idea. Deliver creativity to people wherever they are, on whatever device they want, at the price that they're willing to pay for the features they want. We should establish a creative cloud. We put the software in the cloud, and we sell it to people based on what they want to use, wherever and however they want to use it. Seemed logical. But then, of course, he goes back to his leadership team. And he says, guys, I've had an epiphany. I've got the answer. We're going to be the best company in the world by selling software by the use, by the person, not by the box. And the reaction was less than enthusiastic. The product and the marketing guy said, now hang on a second. Are we going to sell it by the user, by the feature? What are we going to do about upgrades? What are we going to do about maintenance and support contracts and pricing? Cheryl, VP of Sales, how are we going to compensate our salespeople? They used to be compensated on $3,000 a box, and you're saying it's $25 a use? That's not going to work. And John, the operations guy, how are we going to train our people? How are we going to manage this? Any guess what Shantanu's response was? It was, I don't know. I don't have the answer to these questions or others. And we'll have thousands of them as we set off on this journey. But what I do have is I have a leadership team, and the leaders have people in their teams, and we have a company of bright, dedicated, creative people. And so we're going to empower them and all of us to go on a journey. And we're going to figure it out. We'll set a goal. In 5 years, we will be a service business. And we'll figure out the steps to get there. So we went out across the entire organization and structured a process to take one step on this journey at a time to explore and implement and repeat. And it started with keeping an eye on the purpose. What are we trying to achieve? And breaking that down into small segments. To say we're going to be a service company in 5 years, that's a big thing, what we're going to achieve. But what are we going to achieve today? What are we going to achieve this week that will put us a little further on that path to our goal? So starting and breaking down the purpose, the goals that you can track and measure. And then begin to explore those questions of how. The what if. Going out to customers. What if we packaged it and priced it per person, or per use, or per feature? What would you buy? What would make you happier? And when you get a consistency of answers to what if, come back and say, okay, let's try it. Let's try it for the next quarter. We're going to go at $25 per user for this market and see how it works. And then come back together and collaborate and share. What did we learn? And in doing that, when we've all learned that one thing works, it is $25 and it is per user, celebrate. Celebrate the wins along the way, because it is a journey, or a marathon, really. And once you find the pattern, empower everyone in the organization. Small step, what's the purpose? Explore, act, collaborate, take the cycle again. And it paid off. Those 5 years that Shantanu set out was about exactly what it took to reach the revenue goals. Within 7 years, profitability targets way exceeded. The stock went from $20 per share to over $550 per share for the last few years. Taking a risk, thinking out of the box, taking those small steps to try something new pays off. Today, the paradigm has shifted. The pace of change, the tools that we have available to us to help us in the communication of exploration, to monitor, to track what's working, can speed that journey. Instead of 5 years, it can be 5 months or 1 year along the journey. And we'll see that continue. The speed of change is increasing by the second. And that's powered by things like generative AI that's going into creating more and more rich data lakes, and all of the tools that we're using that make it easier and easier for us to think differently. The language models that improve every moment the quality of how the technology supports us, combined with the significant investments and the doubling down in Silicon Valley and around the world on the compute power, what actually powers how we work with technology. And that ranges from the NVIDIA chips that are specifically designed for an application through to high-performance computing. And this concept in the center picture there is quantum computing, a whole new architecture for the platforms behind us that I believe, and a lot of the analysts and experts agree, in another 5 to 10 years will be what we're using. 100,000 times faster. So change is the only constant, and it is going to increase. Because the technology that is building and powering us is going to be the enabler for the society of the future. Whether that's robotics, and we have today embodied AI, where a robot can make the coffee, can work on the manufacturing line. Autonomy in San Francisco. This past 2 months ago, I was there. Every 5th car that I saw was driverless. It was on the road, it was moving, it was a Waymo or a Cruise, and it had passengers in it. Every 4th or 5th car. So this is not Star Trek in the future. This is today. And it is being powered through the society that we live in that is already benefiting from the positives of technology. Education, we're able to reach out of the classroom so that people can learn by experiencing. Training is done now in a virtual reality world instead of people learning theory and then learning on the job. Much safer to learn in reality. The advances in both healthcare research, but also the availability of the right tools, the right specialists, the right medications for the right people. The environment. There's a lot of work being done to advance the work on how can we impact and slow the environmental change. But countries like Tuvalu in the Southeast Asian islands that are in threat of being subsumed by the increasing water levels, they're creating a virtual nation so that the next generation of Tuvaluians will be able to be part of a society with norms, culture, language of their culture and background, even if they're living in Japan or Turkey or Norway or wherever they are. Manufacturing, freeing people to think of that next innovation, to ask the what ifs instead of building. And in maintaining, whether that's on the North Sea oil platforms, that's in mining, people no longer have to be subjected to those types of dangerous jobs. They can use a digital twin using the combination of people and technology. The world has fundamentally changed. And while technology grows, I believe that we each as people have an even bigger responsibility to ourselves and to our future generations to lean in, to embrace, to think differently. Dystopia can happen if all of us as people stay in our little corner with our duvet pulled over our heads saying, I don't want to be part of this. It's up to us to jump in, take that risk, have that dialogue in the brain. Yes, and it was good, and we can build a better future. That's our role as humans, not being changed, but being part of building the future. And that sometimes means taking a risk. Just as I was so impressed this morning in hearing Teria talk about the risks that he personally took at the time he'd just come into Marcel, and suddenly it needed cash and he couldn't raise funds. And he, not even a founder, came in and said, I will take the cash that I have and I will put it into the company. That's a huge leaning in and taking a step forward. And now taking with him all of you, smart people on this journey, to determine what is that future of Marcel. Where can each of you and where can you as a company be? He doesn't have the answers. No one around the table has all of the answers. But you can take those steps and learn together. Focusing on the purpose, focusing on where you want to be, breaking those goals down to manageable chunks, asking the what-if questions, talking amongst each other of your ideas, and agreeing to take action, small steps, and then collaborating, celebrating the wins, congratulating each other. It is a journey, and you're in this journey together. And empowering not only yourselves, but the next generation of people that come in to be that kind of company that is setting a new standard, changing the world, changing the procurement market, changing the way you interface with each other, one small step at a time. So one could say, I guess I'm leaving you with my peace, as they say, and wishing you a great success in moving forward on that journey. Thank you.